Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are safe. Guys, I will be doing a live stream later, probably about 9 o'clock UK time, or maybe a little bit earlier. But we will be going live later on, for sure, without question. Guys, I wanted to talk about a couple things, actually. I wanted to talk about Keith Thurman, and I wanted to talk about Canelo Alvarez responding to Floyd Mayweather. So, Keith Thurman will be fighting Barrios in January. I think January the 29th, I believe. He'll be fighting Barrios in a pay-per-view fight. Really bizarre. Barrios fought at 140 against Gervonta Davis, and now I think he's moving up to welterweight to fight Keith Thurman. I don't understand that, to be honest, but yeah, a strange picking of opponent. Barrios. You know, Barrios just lost to Gervonta Davis. I don't know why Keith Thurman will be looking at someone like that, especially the fact that the guy is a 140. It shows me that obviously Keith Thurman wants to have a soft touch, or he feels Barrios will be a soft touch. But having said that, he also thought Josecito Lopez was going to be a soft touch, and Josecito Lopez almost knocked him out. So at this point in Keith Thurman's career, I just don't know what Keith Thurman's got left. I don't know what Keith Thurman, where he's at mentally. I don't know where he's at physically. So I want to see Keith Thurman in action. I feel like Keith Thurman was one of those guys that you thought this guy was something special, and all of a sudden his careers fell away. You know, it's fell away. Really, you expected a lot more from Keith Thurman. You know, he was a good boxer. He was very athletically gifted. He was fast of hands, fast of feet. Now, we know he had a vulnerability with his body shot, you know, body resistance. He used to get hurt a lot with the body, but he was never stopped to the body. And someone's pointed out to me that, Imran, you say that Keith was weak to the body, but he never ever got stopped to the body. But the point I'm trying to make is this, that I like Keith Thurman, but I just don't know where he's at. Physically, mentally, he's been out for so long. He hasn't fought since the Pacquiao fight. Pacquiao's fought, and he's 40-something years of age. He's fought after fighting, you know. I don't know where he's at. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't know where he's at. I don't know whether he can reach the top. I don't think he can beat the best in that division. I don't think he can beat Terence Crawford. I don't think he can beat Errol Spence. But again, Errol Spence is also, might be damaged goods as well. So we don't know what we're working with Errol. We don't know what we've got with Errol Spence. So it's really, really frustrating because all of these guys were destined for greatness. Thurman, you know, Spence, Crawford, obviously he's doing his thing and he's the top man at the minute. But, you know, Crawford, you know, you expected a bit more from Spence and Thurman. Spence, we don't know what's happening with him. Thurman's been injured and he's taken a defeat against Pacquiao. He's kind of lost, his career's lost a bit of, you know, lost its way a little. Great fighter in his day, but I feel like he's past his best now. I don't know whether Keith Thurman can reach the top again, if I'm totally honest with you. I don't know whether he's got the hunger. I don't know whether he's just doing it for a few paychecks now. He's also got a good job as an analyst and a commentator, and he's doing well, Keith Thurman. But it's sad because I think he had so much more to give to the sport of boxing. You know, and injuries and inactivity has kind of like put Keith Thurman on the shelf a little. You know, now people are talking about Keith Thurman as if like he's a gatekeeper and he's like, you know, he should fight guys like Jaron Ennis and guys like that so then they can make their way in the sport. And I never thought Keith Thurman would become like that. I didn't think Keith Thurman now has got, basically, I remember Keith Thurman, you was calling out Mayweather, calling out Khan. He was calling out people senior to him at the time that had made a name for us in the sport. And he was doing what Jaron Ennis and those guys are doing. Now the shoe's on the other foot. Now those guys are doing to Keith Thurman what Keith Thurman was doing to guys like Khan and Mayweather. And that to me, that to me shows that Keith Thurman is obviously at the end of his career. I don't think Keith Thurman's got a lot left. Personally, you know, I hope he does, because I think Keith Thurman was a great fighter. He was very exciting to watch, very explosive fighter. Like I said, very athletically gifted, you know, and I think he was a very dangerous fighter for anybody in around his prime. Unfortunately, his prime didn't last very long. His prime didn't last, and even in his prime, he was vulnerable. You know, he was definitely could be hurt, but he was a good fighter, very good fighter, and after the Danny Garcia fight, he's just never been the same. You know, he came back for Josecito Lopez, almost stopped. Then he got beat by Pacquiao. And now he's fighting again after like how much inactivity. The guy's in probably around 4 years has fought twice. It's just not good enough for a guy like Keith Thurman. A level of fighter of Keith Thurman to have 2 fights in 4 years. That's fairly poor. if we're honest about it. You know, Keith Thurman should be fighting. He should be fighting consistently. He should be fighting regular. Unfortunately for Keith Thurman, his career's kind of gone down a little bit at the wayside. We expected a lot more. I'll be honest, I expected a lot from Keith Thurman. When I first saw this guy fight, I thought he was it. I thought he was the man. Unfortunately, you know, we see this too much in boxing. You know, a guy gets inactive or he gets injured. And listen, it is a tough sport. Boxing is a tough sport, so these things can happen. Injuries can happen. You know, I just don't think Keith Thurman's the same guy. I remember I used to love that Keith Thurman back in the day when he was calling out Floyd, when he was calling out Amir Khan. Just the way he used to speak, the passion, the desire, the hunger. I don't see that Keith Thurman. Obviously, as you get older, you mature. You're not going to be like what you were when you were 22, 23. But I just don't see that fire. I don't see that hunger in Keith Thurman's voice anymore when he's talking. That could be maturity or whatever, but I don't know. I have my doubts if Keith Thurman's now the fighter he once was, and I don't know whether Keith Thurman now can reach the top. That's just my honest opinion, and I won't be surprised if he gets upset by a Barrios, someone like that. So, like I said, he was almost upset by Lopez. That was also a fight that, and Barrios kind of has a similar kind of style to Lopez. He's kind of like a similar tall, lanky fighter, and he has a similar style. That could be a dangerous fight. But having said that, he fought Tank and he got stopped by Tank. Thurman's a bigger guy, punches harder. But I don't know, man. I genuinely don't know about that fight. You know, I expect Thurman to win, but who knows what Thurman we're gonna get? We could get a Thurman that's completely shot to bits. You know what? I actually think I know Thurman's talking about Crawford, and Crawford's obviously interested in that fight. But I don't know. I think Crawford should be going for Spence. And hopefully, if that fight can't be made, then Thurman will be good. I reckon Thurman could also fight the winner of, especially if it's Amir Khan, because he's going to be fighting a welterweight. I think that would be a good fight for him, the winner of that fight. But I don't think he'll fight Brook at welterweight, because Brook can't make welterweight. But definitely, if Khan wins, I think that could be a good fight for Thurman. That'd be a great fight, you know, because I like that fight. I would definitely want to watch that. So, yeah, I think a Thurman and Khan fight or a Brook fight would be good. I'd like to see that. But let's talk about Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez has responded back to Floyd. He's hit back at Mayweather. And basically retweeted a post, I believe, from somebody that actually said that, you know, the reason why Floyd is hating on Canelo is because Floyd is jealous. My opinion about it is that I feel like I like Floyd Mayweather. I think he's a great fighter. But one thing I've noticed with Floyd, anybody that he feels becomes a threat to his legacy, I feel like he'll start bashing them. And what I mean by bashing them, he'll start tearing them down. For example, he does the same with Ali. Look, Ali lost to someone with 7 fights. That's what Mayweather says a lot. You know, I've got no losses on my record. I've beaten more world champions. And, you know, he says a lot of things. But what he does is, one thing I noticed with Mayweather, him being considered the greatest is a very, very big thing for him. So when he feels that someone's a threat to him, he kind of starts dragging them down. And I feel like he feels that Canelo now, even though Mayweather beat him, and Mayweather was right what he said. He goes, you know, he was 36 at the time he fought Canelo, and he did, not destroy, but he did dismantle Canelo. That was a very, very one-sided fight. You know, Canelo was probably one of Mayweather's easier fights. Maidana gave Mayweather a very, very tough fight. But Canelo, on the other hand, was no contest, really, when we think about it. It was quite easy for Mayweather. Easy pickings. I thought Cotto gave Mayweather a much harder fight than Canelo. But Canelo was fairly raw and very green at the time. He wasn't the best version of himself. But nevertheless, Mayweather did his thing. But Canelo Alvarez, what he's doing in the sport of boxing right now is he's winning titles after titles, fighting champions after champions. And by the end of his career, he'll probably surpass Floyd in terms of like how many former world champions he's beat, the titles won. You know, he's already undisputed. So the thing is that Canelo Alvarez is catching up Floyd and going past him. And Floyd probably looks at him as a threat to his legacy, that maybe people might eventually start saying that Canelo's greater than Floyd. And that I feel like Floyd's done that with Ali, he's done that with Sugar Ray Robinson, you know, and Ali and Sugar Ray Robinson they're, for me, the greatest of all time, both of them. No fighter, in my opinion, will be greater than those guys. That's just my personal opinion. 15-round fighters, guys, they were just great. Their resumes are crazy as well. The amount of, especially Ali's resume was ridiculous, if we're honest. But coming back to it, I feel like Canelo now is, from a legacy point of view, is starting to develop some legacy. And remember, he's only 31. When Floyd was 31, Floyd was not even that well known. Because when did he fight Ricky Hatton? That's when I got to know who Floyd Mayweather was, when he fought Ricky Hatton. Prior to that, I didn't even have that much. Like, at that time, I wasn't that into boxing like I am now. But to be honest with you, I don't think Mayweather was that much of a household name globally. And I don't think a lot of people really knew Mayweather at that point. I remember speaking to somebody about Mayweather years later that wasn't really interested in boxing, didn't know who Mayweather was. Maybe now they know who Floyd is. But at the time, Floyd wasn't that big. Canelo's not... See, Canelo appeals to an audience. I don't think Canelo's a global superstar or anything. He's not known like a Mike Tyson, or he's not known like a Muhammad Ali. Like, obviously, you're not going to be known as big as those guys. Those guys were like icons. Canelo's great at what he does, and he's probably a better fighter than Mike Tyson. Like, maybe from a legacy point, like I said, I've told you guys, I don't think anyone's greater than Ali. But yeah, I think from a legacy standpoint, Canelo's developed a great legacy. But I don't think Canelo's a global superstar by any stretch of the imagination. I think people know who he is for sure, but I don't think he's a global superstar like a Mike Tyson or even a Sugar Ray Leonard. Like, Sugar Ray Leonard was great and a massive name, but he wasn't known like Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson was a phenomenon all over the world. So yeah, Canelo, for me, is becoming a huge star. Most importantly, not just a huge star, he's starting to develop a serious legacy. A legacy which is going to be remembered in years to come. Because like I said, this guy's beating champion after champion, and he's doing a lot of great stuff in the sport. And he should be appreciated. So yeah, he responds to Mayweather. Is Mayweather jealous? I won't say Mayweather's jealous. I would say that Mayweather probably views Canelo as a threat to his legacy. Do you know what I mean? Because Mayweather, like I said, for Mayweather, like a lot of fighters, one thing I've noticed about great fighters, they don't really care about being the greatest. But I feel like to Mayweather, it's a very important thing, being the greatest. Like, I'm the greatest fighter. I'm better than all those fighters. There's no fighter in the history of the sport better than me. Whereas, like, if you speak to Canelo, and Canelo ask him, are you greater than Muhammad Ali? I don't think Canelo would say I'm greater. He would actually say Ali's way greater than me. Like, that's what response I think Canelo would say. Where to Mayweather, him being like, Mayweather always says that, I've not given this much to this sport to say somebody else is better than me, which is a fair point. To Mayweather, it's very important to be considered the best. I don't think Canelo is that obsessed. Like, he wants to create a great legacy, yes, but I don't think he's obsessed with being called the greatest or being called the best. And to be honest with you, I don't think Canelo will be called the best. I don't think he will be called the best. Even if he goes on, because I don't think he's firstly got the opponents, unfortunately, in his era. But regardless, I think there'll be a lot of fighters, even when Canelo finishes his career, that a lot of people will think ahead. I do think Canelo, who knows, he could... Some people may say he might finish a top 10 greatest fighter of all time. I speak to some people that don't think Canelo's a top 50. Some people think he's top 30. Some people don't rate Canelo that highly. Some people rate Canelo very highly. But where do you think Canelo Alvarez will finish up on his career? Do you think he'll finish up a top 10? It's going to be difficult, because when you see some of those fighters like Hagler, Hearns, Leonard, and some of them might not be in the top 10. I mean, you look at the guys like Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Robinson, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao. Some of these guys have had great careers, man. Chavez, Bernard Hopkins, Roy Jones. There's some really... Roberto Duran, what a fighter. Pernell Whitaker, wow, what a fighter. So there's been some really great fighters, guys. It's hard, man. It's hard when you talk about legendary champions, man. When you think about how many great fighters there's been, it's hard to imagine being in the top 50 of all-time great fighters. That's some achievement. But yeah, what do you guys think? Canelo Alvarez response to Mayweather. What do you make of Keith Thurman? Do you think Keith Thurman can make a successful comeback? Leave your thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, guys. And guys, remember to please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.